Chapter 411. 3 months quickly passed. That evening, Songwen arrived at Myriad Treasures Pavilion as scheduled, where he met Wei Zhengji and Tian Zhou. Greetings, Senior Wei. Greetings, Taoist Tian. Taoist Wu, please have a seat. Tian Zhou greeted warmly and led Songwen to a seat. Little friend Wu, the magic weapon has been refined, Wei Zhengji said without any visible movement. A curved blade, about a foot long and without a handle, appeared out of thin air in front of him. The blade slowly flew toward Songwen raised his hand to catch the curved blade. As soon as the blade was in his hand, Songwen felt an intense coldness, although he had not activated it yet. He could still clearly sense the sharp edge emanating from the blade, which seemed capable of cutting through anything in its path. Songwen pinched the blade between his fingers and made a light slash in the air. A dazzling cold light cut through the air. Where the sharp edge passed, the air seemed to split in two, emitting a hissing sound as if crying in pain. A fine blade! Songwen's eyes shone brightly as he couldn't help but exclaim, seeing the magic weapon he had crafted receive such praise. Wei Zhengji also smiled proudly. I'm glad you are satisfied, little friend. Wei Zhengji's face showed a barely concealed sense of pride, and he continued explaining, when I crafted this blade, I specially integrated some heavenly fire stones. This not only makes it incredibly sharp, but also allows it to hold spiritual flames within. Just refine the blade, place it in your dantian, and nourish it with spiritual flames day and night. In time, the blade will naturally imbue itself with a hint of spiritual flame. Songwen put away the curved blade and clasped his hands in thanks. Thank you, Senior Wei. He then took out a storage pouch and handed it over. Inside the pouch were a fire gangwood, 50 high-grade spirit stones, and the golden token used as proof of the transaction. After inspecting the contents of the pouch, Wei Zhengji smiled with satisfaction. Little friend, if you ever need more magic weapons refined in the future, remember to come to Myriad Treasures Pavilion and find me. I promise to give you a special discount. After a brief conversation, Songwen stood up and took his leave. Once Songwen's figure disappeared from sight, Tian Zhou's smile instantly vanished, replaced by a cold and stern expression. Master Wei, should we send someone to follow this young man and take the magic weapon from him? Wei Zhengji responded. It would be easy to deal with this young man, but the nascent soul master behind him is quite mysterious. The fire gangwood is already in hand, so it's best not to stir up any unnecessary trouble and attract enemies. Songwen left Myriad Treasures Pavilion and, pretending to be unaware, wandered around the black market. He kept a cautious eye on his surroundings, observing the movements behind him. To his surprise, he didn't detect anyone following him. Still not fully at ease, Songwen, after leaving the black market, traveled more than 1,000 miles through the dense forest, confirming multiple times that he wasn't being followed. Only then did he return to his cave outside Fang City. After entering the cave, Songwen took out the short blade. He examined it for a moment before murmuring to himself, I'll call you Void-Breaking Blade from now on. He sat down cross-legged, activating the magic power in his body to refine the short blade as a mid-grade magic weapon. Refining the Void-Breaking Blade was incredibly time-consuming. It took over 2 months before Songwen had completely refined the weapon. Late at night, Star Point Lake. Songwen's solitary figure appeared by the lake. He had traveled a long distance just to test the power of the Void-Breaking Blade. This place was devoid of spiritual energy and rarely visited, making it the perfect place to activate the Void-Breaking Blade without drawing attention. Songwen opened his mouth and exhaled, sending the Void-Breaking Blade flying out with a thought. The blade's cold light erupted. The sharp chi gathered into a bundle, and as it breathed in and out, it seemed capable of cutting through anything in its path. The Void-Breaking Blade flew out, and its cold light sliced through the water's surface. The calm lake was torn apart like fabric, revealing the deep lakebed below. The water churned, and waves splashed in all directions. The entire lake trembled from this single strike. Songwen summoned the Void-Breaking Blade embedded in the lakebed and turned to leave. That strike had consumed nearly 70% of his magical power. With his Cultivation at the early stage of Golden Core, it was still too difficult to use a mid-grade magic weapon. It could only be used as a trump card moreover. The void-breaking blade had not yet fused with spiritual flames. If he were to infuse it with the silver firebird's flame, the blade would possess both the yang power of the jade light flame and the cold Een aura of the nether corpse fire. Its power and killing potential would surely increase significantly. For the time being, Song Won dedicated all his efforts to refining the golden jade pill and the chi spirit pill. He only had the pill formulas at hand, with no one to teach him and no peers to discuss with, so he could only explore and experiment on his own. After several attempts, Song Won finally succeeded in refining both pills. The golden jade pill is a pill used by golden core cultivators to increase their cultivation. After refining it, Song Won took one for himself, however. The result was unsatisfactory. The cost and time to refine the golden jade pill were far greater than that of the blood chi pill. But the increase in cultivation was not as effective as the blood chi pill. Taking the blood chi pill would consume vitality and blood. But the blood of the monsters in the unordered sea was cheap. Song Won only needed to spend a few hundred spirit stones to buy all the blood and soul of a second-tier monster. Thus, Song Won decided to sell the golden jade pills to exchange for spirit stones. As for the chi spirit pills, which were used to restore a cultivator's spiritual sense, Song Won kept a few for himself and planned to sell the rest. On the night of the 10th day of the month, Song Won arrived at the treasure conference. After not finding what he was looking for at the auction or the stalls, Song Won directly approached Gan Hong. "Senior Gan, I have a small matter to bother you with." "Little friend Wu, it's been several months since we last met. You haven't appeared at the treasure conference in all that time." Seeing the warm smile on Gan Hong's face, Song Won's heart tightened. Gan Hong knew that he hadn't come to the treasure conference in the past few months. This clearly indicated that every time the treasure conference held an event, Gan Hong was actively looking for his presence, being targeted by a late-stage golden core cultivator. No matter the reason, was not a good situation. Song Won smiled and replied, "I've been busy with cultivation lately and haven't had the chance to attend the treasure conference." Gan Hong said, "That's understandable. We cultivators should focus on our cultivation, as our cultivation base is the foundation of everything." Then, his tone shifted as he continued, "Little friend Wu, what brings you to find me?" Song Won flipped his hand and took out 2 jade bottles. "Under the instruction of my master, I've come to sell some pills and also wish to purchase some spiritual herbs." Gan Hong's interest was piqued. "What kind of pills are they? If they're second or third-tier pills, my price for purchasing is slightly higher than the ones in Fong City and the black market." "Golden jade pills and chi spirit pills. 10 golden jade pills and 10 chi spirit pills." As he spoke, Song Won handed over the 2 jade bottles to Gan Hong. After inspecting the pills, Gan Hong said, "The pill's quality is quite good. I'll offer 400 spirit stones for each golden jade pill and 800 spirit stones for each chi spirit pill. What do you think of this price?" Chapter 412. The cost to refine one batch of golden jade pills is about 1,000 spirit stones for the spiritual herbs. A batch yields 10 pills, and the pill success rate is around 50%. This means the cost of one golden jade pill is approximately 200 spirit stones. The cost of a chi spirit pill is about 400 spirit stones. Gan Hong's offer gave Song Won about double the profit. This clearly indicated that Gan Hong was very familiar with the production cost of the golden jade pills and chi spirit pills. In the pill stores, the selling prices for the golden jade pill and the chi spirit pill are 500 and 2,000 spirit stones, respectively. The golden jade pill used by golden core cultivators for cultivation requires long-term consumption, so the store's profit is small but is made up for by the volume. The chi spirit pill is expensive but rarely used. Most golden core cultivators only keep a few for emergencies. Song Won nodded and said, "Thank you." Gan Hong took the pills but did not pay Song Won in spirit stones. Instead, he asked, "Little friend, is there any spiritual herb you wish to purchase this time?" 10 stalks of profound spirit root and life reversing pearls. Also, if you have any third-tier pill formulas, I would like to buy some. The profound spirit root and life reversing pearls Song Won bought last time were already used up, but he still had plenty of golden spirit seed. Gan Hong replied, "Wait a moment. He first handed over 10 stalks of profound spirit root and life-reversing pearls to Songwon. Then he gave Songwon a jade slip. I have third-tier pill formulas here, little friend, you can choose from them. Inside the jade slip were 8 pill formulas, including the golden jade pill and chi spirit pill that Songwon already had. Other than the golden jade pill and chi spirit pill, I want the other 6 formulas. Please prepare 10 sets of the required spiritual herbs for these formulas, Songwon said. Third-tier pill formulas are rare, and now that he had the chance to obtain them, Songwon didn't want to miss it. Gan Hong smiled. Little friend is straightforward. Please wait a moment. After handing over everything to Songwon, Gan Hong said, the 6 formulas are worth 30,000 spirit stones and the various spiritual herbs total 11,000 spirit stones. Subtracting the 4,800 spirit stones for the pills you are purchasing, you still need to pay me 92,000 spirit stones. To make it simpler, just pay 90,000 spirit stones. Songwon took out 90 middle-grade spirit stones and offered them to Gan Hong. However, Gan Hong shook his head and didn't take them. Little friend, I have a favor to ask of your master. I wonder if you could introduce me to him. The 90,000 spirit stones would be your compensation for the effort. Would you be able to help me out? Songwon hesitated, clearly troubled. It seemed like he was worried that introducing a stranger to his master might lead to punishment, but at the same time he was tempted by the spirit stones after all. For someone posing as a foundation establishment cultivator, 90,000 spirit stones was a significant sum. After a long pause, Songwon finally said, Senior Gan, I must ask, what is it that you need to see my master about? My master is usually very strict and reclusive, and he doesn't like interacting with strangers. I truly don't dare to introduce a senior like you to him. I hope you understand. Gan Hong replied, actually, this matter would be an opportunity for your master as well. I'm not hiding anything. I'm working for the eldest son of the Xing family, Xing Li Ren. The eldest son is planning to refine a special pill and needs 9 third-tier alchemists to work together. Songwon frowned and asked, Senior, are you really working for the Xing family? I am, of course. Otherwise, how could I obtain third-tier spiritual herbs like golden spirit seed, profound spirit root, and life-reversing pearls, which are hard to find in both Fang City and the black market? As a loose cultivator, how could I have access to these? It's all thanks to the support of young Master Xing Li Ren. If your master can join this special pill refining project, not only will there be a generous reward, but your master will also have the chance to make connections with young Master Xing and many other third-tier alchemists. This will greatly benefit his future cultivation path. Gan Hong spoke rapidly, almost like a sales pitch. However, Songwon felt a great sense of vigilance. The mighty Xing family, surely they could gather 9 third-tier alchemists on their own? Did he still need to look for alchemists outside? Gan Hong's words should not be trusted easily. There must be something hidden behind this matter. Songwon looked intrigued, as though he had already been captivated by Gan Hong's words. He handed over the 90,000 spirit stones to Gan Hong and accepted the jade slip in return. Senior Gan's words make sense. If we could attach ourselves to the Xing family, my master and I would certainly have a much smoother cultivation path in the future. At this point, Songwon's expression suddenly darkened. Unfortunately, my master has always refused to interact with sex or noble families. Otherwise, with his talent, he should already be a renowned alchemy master in the cultivation world. Gan Hong smiled. Your master has great ambition, and you, as his disciple, work hard to support him, little friend. Because of this, you should persuade your master to assist the Xing family. If your master can one day become prominent, you will have contributed, and that will be your filial duty. Songwon nodded, agreeing. I will go now and persuade my master to meet with Senior Gan. With that, Songwon turned to leave. Little friend, wait a moment. Gan Hong suddenly stopped him. Senior Gan, do you have any further instructions? Songwon turned around and asked calmly. In reality, he was feeling quite uneasy. Now, he was in a confusing situation. If Gan Hong wanted to force him to stay, he might not be able to escape. Gan Hong threw a jade slip at Songwon. This is my communication jade slip. No matter what the outcome of this matter is, please contact me quickly. Understood, Senior, Songwon replied. He then continued walking out. This time, Gan Hong did not try to stop him. Songwon easily made his way through the path and exited the formation. He glanced back at the mountain peak shrouded in mist and cloud. Song couldn't help but feel a bit regretful. It wasn't easy to find a stable source of third-tier spiritual herbs, but now he had to abandon it. Also, the identity of Wu Shang could no longer be used. Gan Hong stood at the peak, his gaze seemingly piercing through the formation's layers of mist. Watching Song Wen leave, a smile appeared on his lips. Trying to escape? Just what I wanted. You'll lead the way and take me to your master. Gan Hong's smile only lasted for a moment before it quickly turned into a look of surprise. He had left spiritual sense marks on both the communication jade slip and the spiritual herbs. He sensed that the marks were rapidly moving away from him at an astonishing speed. How is this possible? He's only at the foundation establishment stage, but his speed can rival that of a mid-golden core cultivator. Wait, he is the third-tier alchemist. The so-called master is just a fabrication of his. Gan Hong's figure blurred into a streak of light as he swiftly passed through the formation, chasing after Song Wen. After pursuing for several miles, Gan Hong's expression turned bewildered when the spiritual sense marks disappeared. Based on his escaping speed, he's at most a mid-golden core cultivator. I am in the late golden core stage, and I left my spiritual sense mark. Why was it erased so quickly? Chapter 413. Gan Hong did not give up. He arrived at the spot where the spiritual sense marks had last vanished, but could find no trace of Song Wen after thoroughly searching the area. Gan Hong found no sign of Song Wen and could only leave in frustration, heading towards Fang City. Upon reaching the northwest gate of Fang City, the barrier at the city gate lit up, blocking Gan Hong's way. He took out a green sword-shaped token. The token was engraved with the character Wa Foreign, a pass for foreign cultivators to enter and leave the North City. Those holding this token were only allowed to enter through the west gate of the North City. After injecting some spiritual energy, the token emitted a faint green glow. Gan Hong smoothly passed through the barrier. Once inside the North City, he did not fly, but instead walked towards the city center. Not everyone, however, walked like him. Many cultivators flew above him, some even in the foundation establishment stage or qi refining stage. All of these people, without exception, were members of the Xing family in the North City of Fang. Only the Xing family members had the right to fly through the air. Foreign cultivators, even those as advanced as Gan Hong, who was at the late golden core stage, had to obey the rules of the Xing family and walk on the ground soon. Gan Hong entered a grand manor. In the depths of the manor, he knocked on a study room door. "Young master, Gan Hong has come to report." "Come in," came a deep voice from within the room. At the same time, the door opened on its own. The room was luxuriously decorated, with every item radiating powerful spiritual energy. In the center of the room, a handsome young cultivator was sitting cross-legged on an exquisite cushion. This person was Xing Liren, the eldest son of the Xing family. "How has the search for the 9 third-tier alchemists gone?" Xing Liren asked in a soft voice, though it carried an undeniable authority. Reporting to the young master, "So far we have found 5 alchemists, but there are still 4 more to go," Gan Hong said cautiously, knowing he had failed in his task. "The spellcraft gathering is only 2 years away. Why is it taking so long to find the alchemists? Didn't you say months ago that you had found a third-tier alchemist?" Xing Liren remarked. Gan Hong bowed respectfully. "My subordinate failed in his task and carelessly let the person notice the signs. That person managed to escape." Xing Liren glanced at Gan Hong with a faint look of disapproval. "You need to have your subordinates keep a closer watch. If they find any trace of a third-tier alchemist, report it immediately. If, after a year, you still haven't gathered the 9 third-tier alchemists, we'll have to consider other methods. The spellcraft gathering will attract countless cultivators to Fang City. It is the best opportunity to gather 9 qi refining cultivators with soul source bodies. We cannot afford to waste it. Cultivators with a soul source body naturally have a stronger soul power than ordinary people. As their cultivation advances, their soul power increases more rapidly than that of regular cultivators." Gan Hong asked. "Dare I ask, since the Xing family has many alchemists, including several third-tier ones, Why not directly gather 9 third-tier alchemists within the family to refine the heavenly spirit pills for the young master? A cold smile appeared at the corner of Xing Liren's mouth. Do you know why I am going to all this trouble to hold the spellcraft gathering? Without waiting for Gan Hong to answer, Xing Liren continued. On the surface, the spellcraft gathering was initiated by me, but in reality, it is a plan devised by the entire Xing family. This spellcraft gathering is merely a means to collect the spiritual materials needed to refine the saintly spirit pills for the Xing family. To refine the saintly spirit pill, the main ingredients are the essence, blood, and souls of 9 foundation establishment cultivators with soul source bodies. It requires 18 third-tier alchemists to work together for 36 days to successfully refine the pill. At that time, all the third-tier alchemists of the Xing family will be mobilized, with insufficient numbers. How could there be any left for me? The spellcraft gathering will be held under the banner of fairness and justice. When groups are formed for the competition, cultivators will be tested on their talents and cultivation level. In reality, the true test will be to examine their physical attributes. Gan Hong bowed respectfully. I understand. Xing Liren replied. You may go, I will help you. And if you can find enough qi refining cultivators with soul source bodies, I will reward you with a heavenly spirit pill. Thank you for your guidance, young master. Xing Liren did not elaborate further. In order to refine the heavenly spirit pill and saintly spirit pill, the Xing family had long been secretly cultivating soul source body cultivators. Originally, they only needed to wait another 30 or 40 years to cultivate enough soul source body cultivators. But the Xing family could not afford to wait in 10 years. It would be time for the Star Sea Alliance to select a new leader. The selection process was simple. The number and cultivation strength of nascent soul cultivators in each major faction would be considered, and the strongest faction would be granted control of the alliance for 300 years. The Xing family had coveted the position of leader for a long time. The family had 3 nascent soul cultivators, one at the early stage, one at the mid-stage, and one at the late stage. Although they had a number of nascent soul cultivators, they were not superior in terms of cultivation level. In order to quickly increase their power, the Xing family thought of their ancestral secret technique, focus spirit stab of the 3 nascent soul cultivators in the Xing family. Only Xing Gaohan had consumed a saintly spirit pill left by his predecessors and succeeded in cultivating the 3rd level of the focus spirit stab, while the other 2 had not yet succeeded. After escaping from Gan Hong's pursuit of Song returned to his cave and took out a blood coffin. The coffin contained a 3rd-tier silver corpse. At the same time, Song held 3 Xian-yin stones in his hands. Earlier, he had hesitated, unsure whether to use these 3 Xian-yin stones to refine 3 silver corpses or use them to upgrade the existing silver corpse to the mid-stage 3rd tier. Today's encounter made him realize that quality is more important than quantity in warfare. In the face of a huge power gap, quantity cannot make up for it. Song placed the Xian-yin stones and a large amount of various tiered corpse path spiritual materials into the blood coffin. Next, he summoned a silver firebird to activate the nether corpse fire and drop it into the corpse coffin to help the silver corpse refine the materials. Green flames surged within the coffin, and the corpse chi rose and fell within it as various corpse path spiritual materials were gradually absorbed by the corpse. Changes began to quietly occur in certain parts of the corpse's body. Subtle silver light gradually appeared. This silver light was not glaring but resembled moonlight scattered across the starry sky, emitting a sinister and profound aura. The silver light spread gradually, from partial to complete. Every bone, muscle, and inch of skin on the silver corpse began to undergo transformation slowly. The entire corpse became enveloped in this silver light, as if clad in a silver battle. Months passed. The 3 Xian-yin stones and numerous corpse path spiritual materials were completely absorbed and refined by the silver corpse, and a powerful, malevolent corpse chi erupted from its body, instantly sweeping through the entire cave. The air inside the cave seemed to freeze from the corpse chi, creating an oppressive and chilling sensation. The silver light slowly began to recede, and the silver corpse returned to its decayed state. However, its eyes gleamed with a chilling, cold light. striking fear into anyone who gazed upon it. Chapter 414. Looking at the silver corpse in the blood coffin, Song suddenly noticed that the high-quality corpse-raising coffin, which he had acquired from Wu Ren, seemed to be somewhat inadequate for the silver corpse, which had already reached the mid-stage of the third rank. It seems I need to find a better corpse-raising coffin. Song put away the coffin and left the cave, heading toward the southern city. In Fang City, demonic cultivators were not rare. There were also many shops selling demonic materials and magical treasures. Song visited several shops and finally purchased a top-grade magical artifact, a corpse-raising coffin, for 120,000 spiritual stones. He had originally intended to buy a magical treasure-grade corpse-raising coffin, but these coffins were far more expensive than ordinary attack type magical treasures. Even a low-grade magical artifact corpse-raising coffin costs 60 to 70 top-grade spiritual stones. Considering that the top-grade magical artifact coffin would suffice for now, and with his not-so-wealthy purse, Song had no choice but to settle for second-best. Song noticed that there were more cultivators coming and going in the city. Around the southern part of the city, construction had started, with houses being built in preparation for the upcoming spiritual conference. The Xing family was organizing the event, and all the participating cultivators were guests. The Xing family was preparing safe and comfortable accommodations for them. 2 weeks later, while cultivating, Song felt a tremor from a communication jade slip in his storage ring. Taking it out, he saw it was a message from Xing Chong, whom he hadn't heard from in over a year. Wei Ding, come quickly to Qingfeng Tower. This young master's lightning technique is complete, and he wants you to witness its true power. The tone was full of arrogance and self-pride. Qingfeng Tower had 13 floors, with the 13th being the top floor. Xing Chong stood by the window, hands behind his back, gazing arrogantly at the cultivators below. Wei Ding, this young master has mastered the second-level lightning techniques, including the Thunder Spear and Thunder Strike. In the upcoming spiritual conference in a year and a half, this young master will surely shine. Xing Chong spoke to Song, who had just arrived. Congratulations to young master for mastering the lightning techniques, Song said. Although Xing Chong was a fool, Song had to admit that his talent for lightning techniques was indeed extraordinary. Xing Chong nodded proudly. Young master, in the past year, have you had any great masters guide your training? Song asked. Xing Chong smiled proudly. After my mother scolded by man, she went crying to my elder brother, trying to get him to punish me. But the relationship between my elder brother and me is not something an outsider can stir up. Instead of punishing me, my elder brother sent a great lightning master to guide me in my lightning cultivation. But I also promised my elder brother not to go to the wind listening pavilion anymore. So this time I chose Qingfeng Tower to meet you. Song secretly muttered to himself. It wasn't that Xing Chong had such a deep relationship with Xing Li Run, but rather that Xing Li Run was also afraid of his troublesome mother and didn't want the wind listening pavilion's business to be affected. So he had no choice but to compromise. Knowing how things worked, Song realized that while Xing Chong was indeed a fool, there were reasons behind his actions. Suddenly, a flicker of lightning appeared in Xing Chang's palm. His face was filled with excitement, as if he had just learned a powerful technique and couldn't wait to demonstrate it. Wei Ding, let's head to the outskirts of the city. This young master wants you to witness my lightning techniques. Didn't your mother forbid you from leaving Fang City? Song asked. We won't go far, we'll stay on the edge of the southern city, and my mother won't know. Xing Chong replied. With that, he soared into the air and headed southwest of Fang City. The southwest part of the city was a poor slum with low, dilapidated houses and populated by lower-level cultivators in the qi refining early stages. Xing Chong stood in midair, with the southern city's outskirts and wilderness below him, scattered with a few trees, as Xing Chong formed hand seals for his lightning techniques. The winds began to stir, and the clouds started to swirl in the sky. Crack! A bolt of lightning, the size of a calf's leg, fell from the sky. The lightning struck a large tree, instantly splitting it into 4 or 5 pieces. Its branches and leaves scattered into the air, and even the ground was affected by the residual power of the lightning, creating a crater. Many scattered cultivators in the area witnessed the scene and fled in panic, like startled birds. Ha ha ha! Seeing the panicked escape of the cultivators, Xing Chong laughed arrogantly. These lowly scattered cultivators are nothing more than ants. They are weak and ignorant. Hee hee. Maybe I can use a few ants to test this young master's lightning techniques. A twisted, sinister smile appeared on Xing Chang's face. He quickly changed the hand seals and 3 thunder spears appeared in the air. The thunder spears he conjured were far weaker than Song Wen's, barely half a meter long, but for the scattered cultivators below, it was still an overwhelming force they couldn't resist. The 3 thunder spears shot down like arrows from a bow. Boom, boom, boom. 3 thunderous explosions rang out. The thunder spears pierced the ground, making it tremble. 3 fleeing cultivators who couldn't escape in time were struck by the spears and exploded into pieces. The shredded flesh was then roasted by the rampant lightning, turning black and carbonized before being blown away as ash in the air. Xing Chong became more and more excited. Wei Ding, how do you think this young master's lightning techniques compare? Ha ha! Young Master Xing's lightning techniques are indeed incredibly powerful, Song Wen praised. Xing Chong continued to manipulate his lightning techniques, sending more thunder spears down one after another. In his mind, he had transformed into a god of thunder, punishing the ignorant commoners and purifying the dirty world. In his excitement, Xing Chong raised his hand and launched several more lightning spears in all directions. Ha ha! Wei Ding, look at how funny these low-level cultivators look as they run away. Young Master Xing, we should leave this place, Song Wen suggested. The sounds of Xing Chang's lightning techniques and the slaughter of low-level cultivators were attracting a lot of attention from the cultivators in the southern city, but no one came to stop him. Even the guards maintaining order in the southern city never appeared. It was as if Xing Chong wasn't killing cultivators, but rather demons or wild beasts. Song Wen didn't like the feeling of being watched by so many people and wanted to leave. Xing Chong seemed to have had his fun and said reluctantly, "Fine, let's go." Just then, a loud shout came from a distance. Who dares to recklessly use lightning techniques on the outskirts of the city? Xing Chong, who was about to leave, stopped upon hearing the voice. Ha! In Fang City, someone dares to meddle in this young master's affairs? I'm about to see who this righteous person is. Chapter 415. In an instant, a woman in tight armor arrived on a sword. She emitted waves of thunderous energy, indicating that she had just been in close contact with lightning, or more specifically, that she had been struck by one of Xing Chang's lightning spears. However, she had blocked the attack and was not harmed. When Xing Chong saw her face clearly, the arrogance on his face vanished immediately. Xing Xinxin, what are you doing here? There was a clear trace of fear in Xing Chang's voice. The woman was indeed Xing Xinxin, the legitimate daughter of the Xing family. Xing Chong, so it's you. Xing Xinxin's face was filled with anger. Her fury wasn't because of the lowly rogue cultivators, but rather because, as a corpse cultivator, she had been unexpectedly attacked by lightning magic, causing her to feel extremely uncomfortable. It was as if her carefully concealed identity as a corpse cultivator had been exposed and targeted. Xing Chong, prepare to fight. With an angry roar, Xing Xinxin transformed into a blur and charged toward Xing Chong. Though she came at him fiercely, she controlled her strength. Not using her magical weapons, she simply slapped toward him. Xing Xinxin, what are you doing? Xing Chong cried out in shock. He quickly used his sword to retreat, trying to escape into the city. However, Xing Chang's speed couldn't compare to that of Xing Xinxin, and he was soon caught. Xing Xinxin's palm came down. The air was instantly torn apart, emitting a sharp, high-pitched hum as the palm wind passed. In response to this, a shield of lightning suddenly appeared in front of Xing Chong. Subconsciously, he activated his thunder shield technique, but the shield was easily shattered, and the palm continued its descent, slamming heavily into Xing Chang's face. Xing Chong felt his vision blur, as if a beast had collided with him. He was sent tumbling through the air and fell to the ground. Bang! Xing Chong crashed into a dilapidated building, causing it to collapse under Xing Xinxin's controlled strike. He was not seriously injured, though he appeared extremely disheveled. His face was red and swollen, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth, his hair a mess, and his clothes torn and ragged. Xing Xinxin, you crazy woman. One day I will make you regret this. Xing Chong gritted his teeth and cursed, rising from the rubble. He thought that, like before, Xing Xin would just beat him up and leave. However, when he lifted his head, he saw her standing before him, staring at him coldly with sharp, angry eyes. "How dare you call me a crazy woman?" she yelled. Xing Xin lifted her leg and suddenly kicked toward Xing Chong. "Xing Xin, do you think I'm made of clay?" Xing Chong shouted angrily, in front of so many people. He still had his pride. He formed 2 lightning spears in his hands and hurled them at her. Xing Xin's kick landed squarely in Xing Chang's chest. He was sent flying back, crashing through several buildings. Unexpectedly, Xing Xin had the audacity to counterattack. In her moment of carelessness, she was struck by one of the lightning spears, but she was no ordinary person at the critical moment. She quickly summoned a protective energy shield, which blocked most of the spear's power. Only a small portion of the lightning entered her body. Though Xing Xin had obtained the complete Corpse King blood refinement art, her transformation into a full corpse had not been fully resolved yet. The moment the lightning entered her body, it caused an indescribable pain, and the corpse chi in her body began to stir violently, showing signs of going out of control. Roar! Xing Xin suddenly let out a low, guttural growl. Her face immediately turned dark, becoming a sickly shade of black. Looking incredibly ferocious, her mouth twitched as her teeth bared, and it seemed like she would soon grow sharp fangs. "Xing Chong, you deserve to die." A killing intent gradually rose from Xing Xin's body. Her fingers curled into claws, and in a flash, she rushed toward Xing Chong with deadly speed. Xing Chong, who had just gotten up from the rubble, felt a cold wind rush at him. In the next moment, Xing Xin's fierce attack was right before him. "Xing Xin, what do you want? Do you really want to kill me?" he shouted, sensing the life-threatening danger without hesitation. He summoned a flying sword and slashed at her. The battle grew fiercer as both of them unleashed their full power. Xing Chong was mostly on the defensive, being pressured by Xing Xin. However, she was also careful not to kill him, nor did she sever his limbs. But the nearby buildings and rogue cultivators were not so lucky. The residual force from their battle was like a destructive storm. The dilapidated buildings crumbled under the impact, as fragile as paper, collapsing in large chunks. Debris flew everywhere, dust rising into the air. The rogue cultivators inside the buildings barely had time to escape before the aftermath swept them away mercilessly. One after another, they fell. Their bodies torn apart, and broken screams and cries for help echoed throughout the area. In just a few breaths, over 100 buildings had collapsed, and hundreds of rogue cultivators had died. Neither Xing Chong nor Xing Xin paid any attention to them, as they saw the lives of the weak as insignificant. Weaklings should be crushed when they appear. Enough! Suddenly, a deafening roar echoed like a thunderclap, shaking the air. A young man appeared in midair. It was Xing Xin's older brother, Xing Li Run, the eldest son of the Xing family. "You too, stop immediately." Xing Li Ren's face was filled with fury, and his eyes burned with intense anger. The grand ceremony for the spellcraft gathering was soon to be held, and many disciples from different sects and powerful rogue cultivators had already arrived in Fong City. Xing Xin and Xing Chang's battle had caused many low-level rogue cultivators to die in vain, which was undoubtedly tarnishing the reputation of the Xing family. Xing Li Ren's roar made Xing Xin tremble, and she reluctantly stopped. She glanced at him, her eyes filled with defiance. It seemed she was displeased that her own brother had not joined her in beating up Xing Chong, but instead was stopping her. "Humph!" With a cold snort, Xing Xin stepped on her flying sword and took off into the air. Xing Chong, as if granted a pardon, was badly wounded. His body covered in blood and looking a mess. He looked at Xing Li Run, his voice trembling with a hint of a sob. "Big brother, Xing Xin." Before he could finish, Xing Li Run cut him off. "Enough! Go back immediately, and don't embarrass yourself here." Faced with Xing Li Run, a golden core cultivator, Xing Chong dared not defy him. He dragged his injured body away toward the northern city. Thoroughly humiliated, Xing Liren then disappeared without a trace. All that remained was a sea of rubble and the bodies of the fallen. When Xing Xinxin arrived, Song Wen had already distanced himself. He witnessed the entire battle between Xing Xinxin and Xing Chong at first. Due to the treasure on Xing Xinxin that concealed her aura, Song Wen didn't immediately recognize her. It was only when he saw signs of her corpse transformation that he realized she was the same woman who had exchanged the Corpse King blood refinement technique with him. Watching her retreat, a smile gradually crept across Song Wen's face. He urged his flying sword to follow her. Xing Xinxin didn't return to the northern city, but instead wandered through the south city's market. When she arrived at a relatively secluded area, a strange insect caught her attention. That's that person's bug. A thought flashed through Xing Xinxin's mind. She was about to capture the insect when she saw it burrow into the crack of a stone wall by the street, disappearing from view. Next to the stone crack, there was a jade slip. Chapter 416. Xing Xinxin looked around but didn't find any suspicious individuals. She focused on the jade slip, pondering for a moment, then used her spiritual power to lift it into the air, suspending it in front of her. After repeatedly confirming that the jade slip posed no danger, she finally extended her spiritual sense into it. If you wish to obtain the Corpse King blood refinement technique for Golden Core stage, come to the Star Point Lake tonight at the Cho hour, bringing the same treasures. As last time, come alone. If you are late, there will be no further opportunities. It really is that person, Xing Xinxin thought. That person who intercepted me outside the treasure conference must be a righteous cultivator, however. He has twice suggested using corpse cultivation materials as a trade. It seems that behind this righteous cultivator, there is a corpse cultivator, and not just any corpse cultivator, but one at the Golden Core stage. Could it be that he really has the Golden Core stage? Corpse King blood refinement technique? A flash of joy crossed Xing Xinxin's face as she considered this. I'm only at the peak of the foundation establishment stage. If I go alone, my life could be in danger. I just beat up that fool, Xing Chong, and that bitch, Shan Yu, will surely go cry to father. I can't ask him to intervene now. Besides, father already doesn't allow me to continue cultivating the Corpse King blood refinement technique after I reach the Golden Core. It looks like I'll have to ask Granny Jean for help. Xing Xinxin's eyes suddenly lit up as if she had thought of a brilliant idea. She mounted her sword and headed towards the northern city. As the legitimate daughter of Xing Gaohan, she was still somewhat doted on by her father, who had even assigned a Golden Core stage guardian to her. Granny Jean, a cultivator at the mid-Golden Core stage, had her own dignity and would not follow Xing Xinxin around every day like an ordinary guard. To get Granny Jin's help, Xing Xinxin would have to speak to her kindly. That night, at the Cho hour 1 a.m. 3:00 m, Xing Xinxin appeared on time above the central island of Star Point Lake. However, Song Wen had yet to make an appearance. Xing Xinxin was not in a hurry. She hovered in midair on her flying sword, waiting quietly. About half an hour later, a masked figure emerged from the water's surface. It was Song Wen, who had been hiding at the bottom of the lake, using his sacred armor bug to scout the area. Only when he confirmed that Xing Xinxin had come alone did he show himself. After all, last time, she had brought her father, Xing Gaohan, who was at the peak of the nascent soul stage, so Song Wen had to be extra cautious. Fellow Taoist, you're a bit late. I thought you might not dare to come, but I didn't expect you were hiding at the bottom of the lake, Xing Xinxin mocked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Song Wen's expression stiffened. He hadn't noticed anything unusual earlier, but now that Xing Xinxin spoke, he realized something was off. The Xing Xinxin before him didn't feel the same as she had the last time they met, but he couldn't quite figure out what was different. A sense of caution began to rise in Song Wen's heart. He had lured Xing Xinxin here with the intention of negotiating the focused spirit stab, but he needed to be careful not to fall into a trap himself. Do you have the items? Song Wen asked, his voice low. Xing Xinxin produced a storage pouch from her hand. I've brought the spirit stones and spirit materials, but I'm not sure if you really have the follow-up technique. Song Wen extended his right hand, a jade slip pinched between his fingers. The technique is here. Let's exchange them at the same time. Xing Xinshin suddenly smiled inexplicably. Fellow Taoist, for just a golden core stage technique, you're asking for 30,000 spirit stones? Don't you think that's a bit greedy? She said with a teasing tone. Before her words had even finished, Xing Xinshin became a blur, charging rapidly towards Songwon. At the same time, several iron needles, about a foot long, shot from her hand. The needles were jet black, as if formed from the darkness of the night, heading straight for Song Wen's head. Song Wen, who had already prepared in his heart, reacted swiftly the moment Xing Xinshin attacked. 3 thunder spears, over 10 feet long, quickly formed and shot towards the iron needles with lightning speed. Just as the thunder spears were about to brush past the iron needles, they suddenly exploded, releasing a burst of countless lightning bolts. Under the impact of the lightning, the speed of the iron needles sharply dropped, and the originally fierce attack weakened significantly, no longer posing a threat to Songwen. Songwen's figure transformed into a bolt of lightning, rapidly retreating. The Xing Xinshin before him was not the real one. The aura of the person had always been restrained, and Songwen couldn't sense any of their energy, but when they attacked, the aura was exposed. The person before him was a mid-golden core cultivator. Songwen had no intention of matching strength with her and quickly used the thunder escape technique, hastily fleeing. Seeing Songwen use his thunder techniques, Granny Jin's eyes flashed with surprise. Didn't Xinshin say he was a corpse cultivator? That's right, the Xing Xinshin before him was actually disguised by Granny Jin. Songwen had ill intentions and planned to obtain the focused spirit stab technique from Xing Xinshin. But Xing Xinshin wasn't a kind-hearted person either. She planned to capture Songwen in turn. Thus, she came up with this steal the beam to replace the pillar strategy. She had Granny Jin disguise herself as her and wear a thin veil artifact to completely conceal her aura. In this way, anyone unfamiliar with them would find it difficult to detect the deception. Songwon, who only had the cultivation of early golden core, relied on his thunder escape technique, and his speed was no slower than Granny Jin, a mid-golden core cultivator. Seeing the distance between them increasing, Granny Jin suddenly emitted a burst of green light and her speed surged. Seeing this, Songwon didn't panic. He quickly made hand seals and began casting thunder techniques. Above, dark clouds rolled, and silver lightning crackled, resembling small silver snakes moving through the clouds. Thunder. Songwon called out softly. In an instant, the lightning in the clouds seemed to follow his command, quickly gathering and condensing. A silver snake, the thickness of a bowl, glowing with faint purple light, broke through the clouds and charged toward Granny Jin. Granny Jin, seeing the sudden thunder descending, couldn't help but show a look of surprise. The person fleeing ahead of her only had early golden core cultivation, yet the thunder techniques he was casting were so powerful they were comparable to the full-strength attack of a mid-golden core cultivator. Moreover, the thunder technique in front of her was unlike any she had ever seen. The divine might it carried was vaster and more domineering. Granny Jin didn't dare to underestimate it. With a solemn expression, she raised her hand and sent out 9 iron needles. The needles shot into the sky, heading straight for the thunder. These iron needles were lower-grade magical items known as demon-breaking needles. During their refinement, various metal-based spiritual materials were integrated, making the needles not only incredibly hard but also imbued with a special ability to break demons. They could penetrate various spells and defenses, especially effective against powerful cultivators or beasts with strong physical bodies. Under Granny Jin's control, the 9 demon-breaking needles followed a mysterious trajectory and shot toward the thunder. Boom. The lightning and iron needles collided, producing a deafening explosion. In an instant, the dazzling lightning spread, illuminating the night as if it were daytime. The intense energy wave quickly swept outward, causing the air around them to tremble. Chapter 417. Granny Jin had managed to block the lightning strike with her skill, but her speed drastically slowed, and the distance between her and Songwon quickly widened. Want to escape? Not so easy. Granny Jin was unwilling to let Songwon slip away so easily. A cold gleam flashed in her eyes, and with a flicker of her body, she transformed into a streak of blue light and pursued Songwon once again. She had just chased for a few hundred steps when another lightning strike struck down. Granny Jin had no choice but to gather her spiritual energy once more and fully defend herself. This caused the speed she had just regained to sharply decrease again. Damn it. Watching Songwon gradually disappear into the distance, already over 100 paces away in the dark, Granny Jin's heart was filled with frustration. She cursed softly under her breath. Although she was unwilling, she knew she couldn't catch up with Songwon. Reluctantly, Granny Jin turned around and headed in the direction of Fang City. Seeing that his pursuer had stopped, Songwon gradually slowed his pace. He couldn't help but feel a bit of sentimentality in his heart, indeed, coveting. Others things often leads to trouble. Fortunately, the person Xing Xinshin had called was just a mid-golden core cultivator. If it had been a nascent soul cultivator, today might have been dangerous. Suddenly, Songwon realized that after reaching the golden core stage, his mentality had quietly shifted. It seemed he was no longer as cautious as he used to be. In the future, I must not act recklessly like today. Songwon silently warned himself in his heart. At the same time, he suddenly remembered something. A yellow paper unexpectedly appeared in his hand. The yellow paper was the fragment of the corpse curse water, which was given to him by a little servant at the Myriad Treasures Pavilion in the Dark Star Black Market. At the time, the servant had mentioned that the Myriad Treasures Pavilion was part of the Xing family's property. The servant had also repeatedly mentioned the word miss. Additionally, Xing Xinshin did not cultivate the proper techniques of the Xing family but instead practiced the Corpse King blood refining technique. Considering these clues, Songwon suspected that Xing Xinshin was the miss the servant had mentioned and was the actual controller of the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. Perhaps I should go to the Myriad Treasures Pavilion to investigate. Songwon removed his mask, disguised himself as a young cultivator in his teens, and flew on his sword towards the black market. Granny Jean, how did it go? Did you capture that person? When Xing Xinshin saw Granny Jean return, she couldn't wait to ask. Granny Jean shook her head. He escaped. What about the technique? I couldn't get the technique either. Xing Xinshin felt an immense sense of disappointment. Granny Jean continued, Miss, you misjudged him. He's not a corpse cultivator, but a righteous cultivator who specializes in thunder techniques. Xing Xinshin frowned. How is that possible? If he's a righteous cultivator, why would he repeatedly request corpse spiritual materials for transactions? Granny Jean replied, I don't know. However, he escaped and he may not give up easily, miss. It's better to be extra cautious in the coming days. It's best to return to the family and continue your cultivation there. I understand. Thank you for the reminder, Granny Jean. Xing Xinshin responded casually. The day before, she had returned to her family, and after requesting Granny Jin's help, she was called over by her father, Xing Gaohan, and scolded severely. The reason was that she had gone crying to Xing Gaohan about being beaten up by Xing Chang. This had already put Xing Xinshin in a very bad mood, and now that Granny Jean hadn't been able to bring back the technique, it had only made things worse, leaving her in an extremely foul mood. Although she appeared respectful to Granny Jean on the surface, she was actually quite dissatisfied with her in her heart. However, due to Granny Jin's cultivation level and the fact that she would need her help in the future, Xing Xinshin didn't show her displeasure. Granny Jean didn't offer any further advice. She returned the thin veil artifact and a storage bag to Xing Xinshin. Afterward, the two exchanged a few insignificant words. Granny Jean then stood up and prepared to leave. At this time, it was already the second hour of the day, and dawn was approaching. The black market would soon be closing. As Granny Jean stepped out of the Myriad Treasures Pavilion, a foundation establishment cultivator in his teens brushed past her and entered the building. Excuse me, does your shop have dragon pattern grass? This was the young cultivator asking the little servant. Granny Jean didn't pay any attention to this. Her figure transformed into a streak of light and disappeared into the horizon. Songwon noticed Granny Jin's departure and couldn't help but reveal a barely perceptible smile at the corner of his mouth. Earlier, he had only been guessing, but now he was sure that Xing Xinshin was definitely inside the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. Our shop has dragon pattern grass. How many years of herb age would the senior like? The servant's words pulled Songwon's attention back. What is the oldest age you have? Songwon asked. We have dragon pattern grass with a maximum of 500 years of herb age, although it's a bit expensive, the servant replied. Songwon raised an eyebrow in surprise. He didn't expect the Myriad Treasures Pavilion to have dragon pattern grass of such a high age. Dragon pattern grass can enhance the bloodlines of demonic beasts. In the year since arriving in Fang City, Songwon had tried several methods, but none had shown signs of advancing his sacred goo, thus he thought. of using dragon pattern grass to enhance the sacred Gu's bloodline, thus promoting its evolution. How much is the 500-year-old dragon pattern grass? Songwon asked. 2,000 spirit stones per plant. Dragon pattern grass was only a level 5 spiritual herb and it could only be consumed by demonic beasts. Although it was 500 years old, the price was still quite high. How about 1,000 spirit stones? Songwon inquired. The servant apologized. Senior, I'm sorry, this price was set by the owner and we do not negotiate. Songwon nodded. How many 500-year-old dragon pattern grass plants do you have in stock? The servant's eyes brightened. It seemed he had encountered a major customer. We have 8 plants, senior. Songwon shook his head. Only 8? That's a bit too few. How many dragon pattern grass plants does senior need? I can ask the manager to arrange for more from other places. The servant asked. 50 plants, Songwon said. The servant's expression immediately brightened. 50 plants of 500-year-old dragon pattern grass was worth 100,000 spirit stones. Making this deal would earn him quite a reward. Senior, please follow me to the tea room in the back courtyard to rest for a moment. The dragon pattern grass will be brought here in less than a quarter of an hour. Songwon naturally agreed. Under the servant's lead, they quickly reached the back courtyard. The back courtyard was surrounded by rooms on 3 sides. With a neat layout, there were artificial hills and green trees in the courtyard, making it a tranquil environment. The servant led Songwon into a tea room on the west side, brewed him some spiritual tea, and reminded him not to wander around before leaving. Songwon picked up the tea and leisurely sipped it to avoid alarming anyone. He refrained from carelessly using his spiritual sense to scan the courtyard. A small bug, the size of a sesame seed, quietly crawled out of the tea room. Half an incense later, the sacred Gu returned. From the sacred Gu, Songwon learned the general situation in the back courtyard. The tea rooms on the east and west sides had no abnormalities inside. The row of buildings on the north side had formations and restrictions preventing any probes from detecting movements within. Songwon released the sacred Gu again, instructing it to hide within the artificial hill in the back courtyard. 15 minutes later, the servant and a foundation establishment female cultivator appeared. The servant introduced the female cultivator as the manager of the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. Taoist friend, we have 50 plants of dragon pattern grass here. Please check them. The female cultivator placed 5 large jade boxes on the wooden table beside Songwon. Songwon opened the 5 jade boxes and checked each one. Each box contained 10 dragon pattern grass plants, and all of them were 500 years old. Songwon took out 100,000 low-grade spirit stones and handed them to the female cultivator, then collected the 5 jade boxes. Welcome, Taoist friend. Please visit again next time. As Songwon stood up to leave, the female cultivator smiled and said. Hearing this, Songwon's lips curled into a strange smile. He nodded without speaking and continued walking toward the exit of the shop. End of the chapter. Read RDC on Patreon Cinder TL, C614. Early access at 5, translated 4 series, 1.8k chapters, 2.25 m words after leaving the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. Songwon did not go far and instead wandered around the nearby shops. By the time the sky began to brighten and the black market was closing, there was no movement in the back courtyard of the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. Shops were closing, and the black market guards appeared, starting to drive away the cultivators. Songwon had no choice but to leave the black market as well. Not long after he exited the black market, dense fog rose, enveloping the entire black market. This was the black market's illusionary maze. The maze allowed exit but not entry, preventing cultivators from entering the ghost market. During the day, Songwon found a hidden crevice in the rocky cliff on a mountain behind the black market. He concealed his aura and hid inside. With the help of the sacred Gu, his spiritual sense could extend over 30 miles, covering the entire ghost market. As long as Xing Xinshin exited the ghost market maze, he would be able to detect it immediately because Xing Xinshin had a treasure to conceal her aura. Songwon worried that he might not be able to sense her, so he left the sacred Gu to monitor her. Songwon thought he would have to wait for a long time, but to his surprise, 2 hours later, the sacred Gu appeared outside the maze. A few dozen steps ahead of it, a veiled figure of Xing Xinshin was flying on a sword towards the east. Away from Fang City, she flew east for nearly 10,000 miles and arrived at the bottom of a vast chasm. The bottom of the chasm was dark, damp, and filled with an eerie, unsettling atmosphere. Xing Xinxin was clearly familiar with the place. Making her way to a cave at the bottom of the gorge, the cave had no formation restrictions, yet Xing Xinxin did not rush in. She stood at the entrance and called out loudly, "Poison old ghost, come out. Miss has something to discuss with you." He. "Miss Xing, you honor me by visiting my poison pit. What business do you have?" A hunched figure slowly emerged from the dark cave. The figure was a frail old man in a tattered gray robe with skin clinging to his bones, making him appear exceptionally thin. His eyes were sunken in their sockets like two black holes. His fingers were long and dry, resembling withered branches. Xing Xinxin looked at the old man's repulsive appearance, a flicker of disgust passing in her eyes. Though she quickly concealed it, she glanced around the gloomy bottom of the gorge. "This isn't the place to talk. Let's go into your poison pit," she said. The poison old ghost raised his bony, dried hand, gesturing toward the cave entrance. "My poison pit has no restrictions. Miss Xing is welcome to enter as she pleases. Without your permission, entering your poison pit casually would be like asking for death," Xing Xinxin replied. After speaking, she took a step forward, but after just a couple of steps, she hesitated and stopped. She took out an antidote pill and swallowed it. Seeing this, the poison old ghost suddenly burst into a strange laugh. A 2-foot-long centipede crawled out from his gray robe, climbing up his thin face and entering his mouth. He bit down, and greenish liquid splattered, staining his yellowed teeth. Soon, there was the sound of crunching as he chewed. "If you keep eating those disgusting insects in front of me, I'll break every tooth in your mouth," Xing Xinxin angrily cursed. All right, I won't eat them anymore," the poison old ghost replied. As they spoke, the two quickly ventured deeper into the cave and came to a large cavern several acres in size. Inside the cavern, there were giant spiders the size of wash basins, centipedes several feet long, and vividly colored poisonous snakes. "Miss Xing, now that we're inside, can we talk? What brings you personally to my humble abode?" the poison old ghost asked. "Do you have anything here that can amplify a woman's desire? It must be something that leaves no trace, something undetectable," Xing Xinxin asked. The poison old ghost's right hand suddenly revealed a black ceramic bottle. "This is the peach blossom love poison. For cultivators below the golden core realm, just inhaling a wisp of it will make their desires uncontrollable and hard to suppress." As the poison old ghost spoke, his face was filled with a lecherous smile. "May I ask who it is that you're trying to deal with? Is it worth going through all this trouble, Miss Xing?" Xing Xinxin replied, "Don't ask about my business." After scolding him, she continued, "If it was just some aphrodisiac, I wouldn't need to travel so far to your poison pit. Aphrodisiacs are too easy to neutralize, and even if it works, it can easily be detected. Do you have something more covert?" The poison old ghost said, "The item you seek is not impossible to find, but it's hard to cultivate. I only have one plant. Do you think I would be short of spiritual stones?" Xing Xinxin replied, slightly displeased, "How could I dare? Please follow me, Miss Xing." The poison old ghost walked to a corner of the cave and gently pressed on the stone wall. A stone door, about 10 feet high, opened. He entered first, with Xing Xinxin following closely behind. Beyond the stone door was a cavern about a mile wide. The ceiling of the cavern was embedded with fist-sized crystal stones emitting a faint glow. The light from the crystals intermingled, casting a green hue across the entire cavern, making it appear deep and grim, giving the entire place an eerie and sinister atmosphere. Inside the cavern, hundreds of medicinal plants were growing. These were all highly poisonous plants. The poison old ghost pointed to one of them. This plant was about 2 feet tall, with a flower the size of a fist blooming proudly at the top. The petals glowed with iridescent, multicolored light. "This is the illusory love flower, a unique medicinal plant I personally cultivated. It is one of a kind in the world, and this is the only one in existence. The scent of this flower is a kind of illusionary poison that directly affects the cultivator's soul. It creates mental illusions, stirring up desires, and once the deed is done, there is no trace left to be detected." Xing Xinxin smiled faintly, clearly satisfied with the illusory love flower. "How do I use this poison? All you need to do is collect the scent and seal it in a jade vial. Let the target inhale it, and it will work." The poison old ghost replied. Xing Xinxin said, "Who would be foolish enough to hold a jade vial and sniff it?" The poison old ghost replied, "If you want to poison someone without them knowing, it's simple. Just pluck a petal and place it in their room or cave. The scent will slowly spread, and over time, they will naturally fall victim to the illusionary poison. Xing Xinxin nodded. That sounds perfect. Give me a petal. The poison old ghost shook his head. That won't work. The illusionary poison from the petals cannot be stored, as it will dissipate. If you want to use the petals to poison someone, you must take the entire plant. Xing Xinxin turned around, her sharp gaze piercing the poison old ghost's ugly face. Her instincts told her that the poison old ghost was not being truthful. He wanted her to buy the entire illusory love flower simply to extort more spiritual stones, however. This was something she absolutely needed, so she reluctantly accepted his outrageous price. How much do you want in spiritual stones? She asked, a bit irritated. 100,000 spiritual stones. Just for this worthless plant. You're asking for 100,000 spiritual stones? Xing Xinxin questioned, her face full of anger. The poison old ghost wore a sly grin. There is only one in the world, Miss Xing. Take it or leave it. Looking at the poison old ghost's smug expression, Xing Xinxin felt an impulse to slap him. But then, she thought of her father, who had cried in front of her, his face full of sorrow, telling her about the wrong she had suffered. Chapter 418. After leaving the Myriad Treasures Pavilion, Songwen did not go far and instead wandered around the nearby shops. By the time the sky began to brighten and the black market was closing, there was no movement in the back courtyard of the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. Shops were closing, and the black market guards appeared, starting to drive away the cultivator's Songwen had no choice but to leave the black market as well. Not long after he exited the black market, dense fog rose, enveloping the entire black market. This was the black market's illusionary maze. The maze allowed exit but not entry, preventing cultivators from entering the ghost market during the day. Songwen found a hidden crevice in the rocky cliff on a mountain behind the black market. He concealed his aura and hid inside. With the help of the sacred goo, his spiritual sense could extend over 30 miles, covering the entire ghost market. As long as Xing Xinxin exited the ghost market maze, he would be able to detect it immediately because Xing Xinxin had a treasure to conceal her aura. Songwen worried that he might not be able to sense her, so he left the sacred goo to monitor her. Songwen thought he would have to wait for a long time, but to his surprise, 2 hours later, the sacred goo appeared outside the maze, a few dozen steps ahead of it. A veiled figure of Xing Xinxin was flying on a sword towards the east, away from Fong City. She flew east for nearly 10,000 miles and arrived at the bottom of a vast chasm. The bottom of the chasm was dark, damp, and filled with an eerie, unsettling atmosphere. Xing Xinxin was clearly familiar with the place, making her way to a cave at the bottom of the gorge. The cave had no formation restrictions, yet Xing Xinxin did not rush in. She stood at the entrance and called out loudly, "Poison old ghost, come out. Miss has something to discuss with you." Hee. Miss Xing, you honor me by visiting my poison pit. What business do you have? A hunched figure slowly emerged from the dark cave. The figure was a frail old man in a tattered gray robe, with skin clinging to his bones, making him appear exceptionally thin. His eyes were sunken in their sockets, like two black holes. His fingers were long and dry, resembling withered branches. Xing Xinxin looked at the old man's repulsive appearance, a flicker of disgust passing in her eyes. Though she quickly concealed it, she glanced around the gloomy bottom of the gorge. "This isn't the place to talk. Let's go into your poison pit," she said. The poison old ghost raised his bony, dried hand, gesturing toward the cave entrance. "My poison pit has no restrictions. Miss Xing is welcome to enter as she pleases. Without your permission, entering your poison pit casually would be like asking for death," Xing Xinxin replied after speaking. She took a step forward, but after just a couple of steps, she hesitated and stopped. She took out an antidote pill and swallowed it. Seeing this, the poison old ghost suddenly burst into a strange laugh. A 2-foot-long centipede crawled out from his gray robe, climbing up his thin face and entering his mouth. He bit down, and greenish liquid splattered, staining his yellowed teeth. Soon, there was the sound of crunching as he chewed. "If you keep eating those disgusting insects in front of me, I'll break every tooth in your mouth. Xing Xin angrily cursed. All right, I won't eat them anymore, the poison old ghost replied as they spoke. The two quickly ventured deeper into the cave and came to a large cavern several acres in size. Inside the cavern, there were giant spiders the size of wash basins, centipedes several feet long, and vividly colored poisonous snakes. Miss Xing, now that we're inside, can we talk? What brings you personally to my humble abode? The poison old ghost asked. Do you have anything here that can amplify a woman's desire? It must be something that leaves no trace, something undetectable, Xing Xin asked. The poison old ghost's right hand suddenly revealed a black ceramic bottle. This is the peach blossom love poison, for cultivators below the golden core realm. Just inhaling a wisp of it will make their desires uncontrollable and hard to suppress. As the poison old ghost spoke, his face was filled with a lecherous smile. May I ask who it is that you're trying to deal with? Is it worth going through all this trouble, Miss Xing? Xing Xin replied, Don't ask about my business. After scolding him, she continued, If it was just some aphrodisiac, I wouldn't need to travel so far to your poison pit. Aphrodisiacs are too easy to neutralize, and even if it works, it can easily be detected. Do you have something more covert? The poison old ghost said, The item you seek is not impossible to find, but it's hard to cultivate. I only have one plant. Do you think I would be short of spiritual stones? Xing Xin replied, slightly displeased. How could I dare? Please follow me, Miss Xing. The poison old ghost walked to a corner of the cave and gently pressed on the stone wall. A stone door, about 10 feet high, opened. He entered first, with Xing Xin following closely behind. Beyond the stone door was a cavern about a mile wide. The ceiling of the cavern was embedded with fist-sized crystal stones. Emitting a faint glow, the light from the crystals intermingled, casting a green hue across the entire cavern, making it appear deep and grim, giving the entire place an eerie and sinister atmosphere. Inside the cavern, hundreds of medicinal plants were growing. These were all highly poisonous plants. The poison old ghost pointed to one of them. This plant was about 2 feet tall, with a flower the size of a fist blooming proudly at the top. The petals glowed with iridescent, multicolored light. This is the illusory love flower, a unique medicinal plant I personally cultivated. It is one of a kind in the world, and this is the only one in existence. The scent of this flower is a kind of illusionary poison that directly affects a cultivator's soul. It creates mental illusions, stirring up desires, and once the deed is done, there is no trace left to be detected. Xing Xin smiled faintly, clearly satisfied with the illusory love flower. How do I use this poison? All you need to do is collect the scent and seal it in a jade vial. Let the target inhale it, and it will work. The poison old ghost replied. Xing Xin said, Who would be foolish enough to hold a jade vial and sniff it? The poison old ghost replied, If you want to poison someone without them knowing, it's simple, just pluck a petal and place it in their room or cave. The scent will slowly spread, and over time, they will naturally fall victim to the illusionary poison. Xing Xin nodded. That sounds perfect. Give me a petal. The poison old ghost shook his head. That won't work. The illusionary poison from the petals cannot be stored, as it will dissipate. If you want to use the petals to poison someone, you must take the entire plant. Xing Xin turned around, her sharp gaze piercing the poison old ghost's ugly face. Her instincts told her that the poison old ghost was not being truthful. He wanted her to buy the entire illusory love flower simply to extort more spiritual stones. However, this was something she absolutely needed, so she reluctantly accepted his outrageous price. How much do you want in spiritual stones? She asked, a bit irritated. 100,000 spiritual stones. Just for this worthless plant, you're asking for 100,000 spiritual stones? Xing Xin questioned, her face full of anger. The poison old ghost wore a sly grin. There is only one in the world, Miss Xing. Take it or leave it. Looking at the poison old ghost's smug expression, Xing Xin felt an impulse to slap him, but then she thought of her father who had cried in front of her, his face full of sorrow, telling her about the wrongs she had suffered. Chapter 419. The poison old ghost wore a smug smile on his face. Miss Xing, please wait a moment. I'll fetch the flower for you right away. The poison old ghost quickly moved to the spiritual garden. He did not immediately pluck the illusory love flower. Instead, he used his hand like a shovel to loosen the soil around the flower about 2 feet deep. He then took out a large flower pot, about 2 feet in size, and carefully placed the plant along with its surrounding soil into the pot. Holding the pot, the poison old ghost walked back to Xing Xinxin. To prevent the scent from dissipating, it's best not to store it in a storage ring. Moving the entire plant back will preserve the scent most effectively. But Miss Xing, be careful. It's best to close your nose and mouth. If you inhale even a little by accident, well. As he spoke, the poison old ghost's expression turned lecherous. Xing Xinxin's face flushed slightly. Before the poison old ghost's warning, she had already inhaled a small amount of the flower's scent. She felt an overwhelming surge of desire rise within her. In her mind, uncontrollable images of intimate encounters with men and women began to appear. Even the ugly face of the poison old ghost in front of her started to look handsome. Fortunately, she had only inhaled a little of the scent, and she could still force herself to suppress her desires. Xing Xinxin glared at the poison old ghost angrily. Poison old ghost, you'd better behave yourself. If you try any tricks again, I'll destroy your poison lair. After speaking, she counted out 100,000 spiritual stones and handed them to the poison old ghost. Receiving the spiritual stones, the poison old ghost immediately grinned widely. His hunched figure bent even further, and he looked even more pleased. Thank you, Miss Xing, for your generosity. Please, go ahead. I'll carry the illusory love flower for you. Xing Xinxin gave him a disdainful glance. In the end, he was just someone who was greedy for money. She took a step forward, passed through the stone door, and returned to the poison lair. However, when she stepped into the poison lair, her expression suddenly changed in shock. Inside the lair stood a young male cultivator. Neither she nor the poison old ghost had noticed when this person had entered the lair. Who are you? How dare you break into my poison lair? The poison old ghost asked in a guarded tone, his voice stern. The cave in the poison lair stretched for several miles and was filled with various poisonous creatures. It was impossible for an ordinary cultivator to sneak in unnoticed. The young male cultivator was Songwon, and he wore a mocking smile on his face. It's just a few poisonous creatures. Do you really think this place is a dragon's den or tiger's lair? The poison old ghost's expression became serious. It seems you are a poison cultivator as well. But you've dared to break into my lair. I'll see how many poisonous creatures you can withstand. As his words fell, countless poisonous insects and snakes crawled out from every corner, swarming toward Songwon. Facing the poisonous creatures coming from all directions, Songwon remained calm. He raised his arm casually and slapped lightly. A spider rushing toward him immediately exploded into pieces, with green liquid splattering everywhere. Along with the explosion, a cloud of green poisonous mist was released. Songwon took a deep breath, and the poisonous mist was completely absorbed into his body. Seeing this, a hint of joy appeared on the poison old ghost's face. Each of the poisonous insects and snakes in this lair was something he had spent great effort to cultivate, and they all contained lethal poison. The young cultivator in front of him only had cultivation in the late foundation establishment stage, yet he arrogantly inhaled the poisonous mist. It seemed like he was walking straight to his death. However, the poison old ghost's joy quickly faded. After absorbing all the poisonous mist, Songwon showed no signs of suffering from the poison. Instead, he looked quite satisfied, as though he was enjoying the experience. It was as if the deadly mist was sweet nectar. Such petty tricks, fellow cultivator. You should spare yourself the embarrassment of showing them off, Songwon said with a teasing smile. A sacred goo flew out, charging at the poisonous insects and snakes. In an instant, many of the poisonous creatures were killed or severely injured. The poison old ghost was deeply pained, shouting loudly, "Stop! Stop it!" However, Songwon would not heed his orders. Except for a few poisonous insects and snakes that managed to flee into cracks, the rest were all exterminated without mercy. The poison old ghost was so furious that he pounded his chest and stamped his feet. But there was nothing he could do to stop Songwon. His most prized weapons were his numerous deadly poisons, but these poisons posed no threat to Songwon. As countless poisonous insects perished, the toxic mist they released was beginning to envelop Songwon. Yet, he remained calm, not even bothering to pay attention to the mist. Instead, he took out a jade vial and began collecting the mist. Meanwhile, Xing Xinshin recognized the sacred goo nearby and her expression grew serious. "It's you," she said, eyeing Songwen warily. Songwen replied, "Miss Xing, it's nice to see you again." Xing Xinshin asked, "How did you find this place?" "Naturally, you led me here, Miss Xing." "You've been following me?" Xing Xinshin felt a twinge of regret. Had she known this would happen, she should have listened to Granny Jean and returned to her clan sooner. "Why have you been trying to get close to me?" she asked. Now realizing that Songwen's second visit to her was definitely not as simple as seeking spiritual stones. "I wanted to borrow focused spirit stab from you," Songwen answered. Xing Xinshin responded, "You're out of luck. I've never cultivated focused spirit stab, and I don't even have the technique for it." Songwen furrowed his brows. "You don't have it?" Xing Xinshin explained, "The Corpse King blood refining technique I practiced has defects. My body started turning uncontrollably into a corpse, so I haven't had the energy to focus on cultivating focused spirit stab." Songwen's brow tightened. This was a situation he hadn't expected. He had assumed that, given Xing Xinshin's talent and her status as the direct descendant of the Xing family's ancestor, she would have already cultivated the Xing family's secret technique. "Focused spirit stab, Miss Xing, why are you wasting time talking to him? Kill him," the poison old ghost suddenly shouted, interrupting the conversation. "You fool. He's a golden core cultivator." Xing Xinshin instinctively retorted. She turned to look at the poison old ghost only to realize something was wrong. A flush had appeared on the poison old ghost's withered and ugly face. His eyes, which were as dark as black holes, kept roaming over Xing Xinshin's body. His gaze was filled with an uncontrollable desire, as fiery and intense as a flame. Xing Xinshin's heart tightened. She was all too familiar with the poison old ghost's current state. It was the same as what she had experienced earlier. He was under the influence of illusory love flower's poison. However, the poison old ghost's condition was far more severe than hers. While she could suppress her desires with reason, the poison old ghost was already on the verge of losing control. The poison old ghost had been holding the illusory love flower all along. At first, he consciously sealed his mouth and nose, fearing that he might accidentally inhale its scent, but after Songwen killed the poisonous snakes and insects, the poison old ghost became disoriented. He forgot about the illusory love flower's effects and, in his carelessness, inhaled several deep breaths of its fragrance. Xing Xinshin instinctively took a step back as she moved. Her chest, tightly bound by her clothes, shifted and wobbled slightly. It was just these few small movements that caused the last bit of the poison old ghost's sanity to completely shatter. He suddenly leapt forward with all his strength, aiming for Xing Xinshin. Xing Xinshin, still retreating, had no time to avoid the charge. And the poison old ghost knocked her to the ground. The poison old ghost pressed his body on top of her, his hands roaming uncontrollably. His ugly face was buried in her chest as he lasciviously groped. Chapter 420. Feeling the dry, rough palms of the poison old ghost rubbing across her body and the continuous assault on her chest, Xing Xinshin felt the illusory poison that she had struggled so hard to suppress begin to stir once again. Uncontrollable images began to appear in her consciousness, difficult to describe. Her eyes became dazed and her mind began to descend into confusion. The poison old ghost suddenly raised his head and opened his mouth, aiming for Xing Xinshin's red lips. His dry, hideous face, yellowed hair, and blackened teeth entered her vision. The foul stench from his mouth surged into her nostrils. Ugh! Xing Xinshin's stomach churned and she felt an urge to vomit. She forcibly suppressed the desire surging within her and fought to maintain control over her consciousness. Poof! Her hand, now turned into a sharp, dried-out claw, pierced the poison old ghost's chest. The poison old ghost's pupils shrank, his desire vanished instantly, and his eyes filled with pain and disbelief. He glanced at the claw piercing his chest, and his eyes gradually dimmed as he lost all signs of life. He had spent his entire life using poison to kill countless cultivators and mortals, but in the end, he was slain by the illusory poison he had cultivated himself. Xing Xinshin shoved the poison old ghost's corpse off her. Standing up, she crushed the heart she had gripped in her hand onto the ground. Afterward, she straightened her disheveled clothes, covering her exposed body. On the side, Songwen had a look of disappointment on his face. He had initially expected to witness some form of drama, but before it even began, it had abruptly ended. "You're so disappointed, aren't you?" Seeing an innocent, fragile woman being defiled by a villain, shouldn't you stand up and offer help? Xing Xinshin said sarcastically. Songwen sneered disdainfully and said coldly, what innocent woman? Xing Xinshin is a ruthless and venomous woman. Xing Xinshin glared at Songwen with fury. I don't have the techniques you're after. What are you going to do to me? Naturally. Before Songwen could finish, Xing Xinshin held up a yellow talisman in her hand. The talisman shattered instantly. A translucent blade of energy shot out, aimed directly at Songwen's forehead. The blade was formless and intangible. It was invisible to the naked eye, detectable only by spiritual sense attack. Songwen's expression turned cold. He had already expected that Xing Xinshin had some life-saving item, which was why he had not acted rashly. However, he never anticipated that it would be a talisman, and one with a spiritual sense attack. This spiritual blade contained a tremendous amount of spiritual power. Even any golden core cultivator would not dare to underestimate it. Without a spiritual treasure to protect the sea of consciousness or defensive spells related to spiritual sense, most golden core cultivators would be heavily injured, if not killed. Realizing it was a spiritual sense attack, Songwen gave up on resistance. Ordinary magical treasures and techniques could not stop spiritual sense attacks. They could only be endured by the sea of consciousness. With his sea of consciousness being a black hole, Songwen had no reason to fear spiritual sense attacks. If even his sea of consciousness black hole couldn't block it, no treasure, no matter how powerful, would protect him. Songwen's figure flickered, and an intense pain erupted from his sea of consciousness, although the spiritual blade was devoured by his black hole. The immense soul power contained within far surpassed Songwen's spiritual strength, causing violent impacts on his sea of consciousness. Songwen shook his head as if trying to drive out the pain in his mind. But it was useless. Miss Xing, do you have any other tricks? Songwen gritted his teeth and said coldly. Xing Xinshin's face stiffened, her expression full of fear and unease. The yellow talisman was called the Soul-Severing Talisman. It was created by a nascent soul cultivator who had cultivated the third layer of the focused spirit stab technique and sealed the power of a single strike into the talisman. The crafting of this talisman was extremely difficult. Moreover, the power it could unleash was far weaker than if the maker had struck personally. Even so, the vast majority of golden core cultivators would find it nearly impossible to resist the power of the talisman. As the daughter of Xing Gaohan, the strongest cultivator in the Xing family, Xing Xinshin was able to obtain one as a life-saving measure. How are you completely unharmed? Xing Xinshin's face became flustered, and her voice trembled slightly. Earlier, she had been confident in confronting Songwen, relying on the soul-severing talisman as her trump card. But now, the talisman had failed, and Songwen had remained unscathed. If you honestly hand over the focused spirit stab technique, I can make your death quick and give your soul a chance for reincarnation, Songwen said. Upon hearing that, Songwen didn't plan to let her leave alive. Xing Xinshin's face turned pale. I repeat, I never cultivated the focused spirit stab technique. If you let me go, I will gladly offer you the full set of its techniques, she said. Let you go? Miss Xing, do you think I'm a fool? As for whether or not you've cultivated the focused spirit stab, I'll find out soon enough. Suddenly, Songwen became a blur, and his sharp claw reached for Xing Xinshin's head. What are you trying to do? Xing Xinshin was shocked, immediately activating her corpse king blood refining technique, turning into a 1,000-year-old dry corpse in a last-ditch effort. However, she was no match for Songwen. Whether it was her supreme spiritual treasure or her claw strike, Songwen effortlessly blocked them. Placing his palm on her head, Songwen's immense spiritual force surged into Xing Xinshin's sea of consciousness, instantly consuming her awareness. Xing Xinshin's resistance stopped as she fell into unconsciousness. Moments later, the soul search ended. What disappointed Songwen was that, just as Xing Xinshin had said, she truly had never cultivated the focused spirit stab. Her memories mostly revolved around cultivation and some matters concerning the Xing family. The only thing that caught Songwen's interest was the long-standing grudge between Xing Chong and Xing Xinshin. Songwen furrowed his brow in thought for a moment, then silently said to himself, perhaps I can use the hatred between Xing Chong and Xing Xin to my advantage. I'll draw Xing Chong here, and then, after removing Xing Xin's storage ring and confirming there were no tracking marks on it or her body, Song Wen took out a soul-binding rope, planning to tie her up, but before he could act, Xing Xin suddenly woke up. As Song Wen was about to knock her unconscious again. He noticed that her eyes were filled with confusion, as if she had lost all her memories and become somewhat dazed. "Who are you?" Xing Xin stared at Song Wen, her expression showing deep confusion and unease. "Where's this?" "Ah, scary bugs." She glanced at the remains of a centipede. Suddenly, Xing Xin jumped up, trembling all over. Did the soul-searching technique harm her soul? Song Wen frowned and muttered to himself.